Next, you're going to set the incubator to 37 degrees Celsius. Make sure it's on and make sure nobody else's stuff is in the incubator before turning it on. I apologize for the camera angle of this video, but next you're going to grab new test tubes, dump them out onto the clean lab bench, cap them, and then label 20 test tubes with the letter number of each sample on top and on the side. You can find the labels for your test tubes, the letter and number, on a Google spreadsheet that I will give to you. You will each be assigned 20 samples per extraction. Next, you're going to go over to the water bath, remove the samples, and you're going to invert the samples 20 times rigorously, and then place back in the water bath. Next, you're going to label 20 new test tubes with the same sample letter number on top, and then the full label on the side. Place these in a separate test tube rack and save for later. Go to the samples in the water bath and give them another good shaking. Invert them 20 times rigorously and then place back in the water bath. Once the hour is up, remove the test tubes from the water bath and add 25 microliters of RNase A to each sample. The RNase A may still be frozen. Wrap your hand around it to warm it up until it is completely thawed, and then vortex it momentarily before pipetting into your samples. Once you've added the RNase A to each sample, place the RNase A back on ice and invert the sample 10 times. Place the samples in the 37 degrees Celsius incubator and set a timer for 30 minutes. Don't forget to bring back the proteinase K and RNase A back to the -20 freezer. Turn on the large centrifuge and set it to 4 degrees Celsius. Once the 30 minutes is up, bring the samples back to the lab bench and add 140 microliters of 7.5 molar ammonium acetate to each sample. You should only need 1 pipette tip for this step. Mix by inverting the samples 10 times and then place the samples in the 4 degrees Celsius centrifuge and incubate for 5 minutes. Do not push start on the centrifuge. Once the 5 minutes is up, go back to the centrifuge and make sure it's set to 12,000 times G for 10 minutes at 4 degrees Celsius. Open the centrifuge and make sure your samples are balanced before pressing start. After you press start, let the centrifuge get up to speed and listen for anything irregular. I'll show you what it should sound like in lab. Once the 10 minutes is up, bring the samples back to the lab bench. Next, you will transfer the supernatant to the labeled test tubes with just the letter and number on the top and the side. Do not transfer any mucus or cell debris that are pelleted at the bottom of the test tube, only the supernatant. Make sure to pipette really slowly and avoid all of that debris at the bottom. Make sure to use a fresh tip for each sample. You can throw out the old test tubes containing the cell debris. Next, you'll repeat the same steps you did to remove proteins and cellular debris, starting with adding 140 microliters of 7.5 molar ammonium acetate to each sample. You will then mix by inverting 10 times and place the samples in the 4 degrees Celsius centrifuge for incubation for 5 minutes without pushing start. You will then set the centrifuge to 12,000 times G for 10 minutes at 4 degrees Celsius. Make sure it's balanced and then press start. Set a timer for 10 minutes and then bring the samples back and transfer to the new test tubes with the full labels. Finally, I figured out the right camera angle. Now that you're done with the centrifuge at 4 degrees Celsius, set it to 20 degrees Celsius. Make sure to pipette slowly and pipette into the correct new tubes. For this step, you should be pipetting 680 microliters of solution into the new test tubes. Make sure to avoid any mucus or cell debris that may still be in the test tubes. Make sure to keep your lab bench clean by removing any test tubes you no longer need. Place the 70% ethanol on ice. You'll need this later during the washing step. Now it's time to precipitate the DNA. Add 680 microliters of 100% isopropanol to each test tube. You should only need one pipette tip for this step. Once the isopropanol has been added to all of the test tubes, invert gently 50 times. During this step, you should see some white stringiness precipitating out of solution. That's the DNA.